They call it loneliness. That's the word they use when they see you sitting alone. These civilized people, when they notice you stop showing up to their shallow gatherings, when they realize you're no longer available for their emotional dumping grounds, their validation factories, their performative friendship rituals, they look at you with pity in their eyes, those soft, ignorant eyes that have never seen real darkness, and they whisper among themselves, "Poor guy, he's lonely, he's isolated. Someone should check on him." But you know better, don't you? You know what they call loneliness is actually something far more ancient, far more dangerous, far more necessary. While they're labeling your isolation as weakness, civilized people, you're in the corner sharpening blades they can't even see. You're not lonely. You're in preparation. You're in the forge. And the difference between those two states is the difference between a victim and a weapon. See, they need to call it loneliness because if they called it what it actually is, they'd have to confront something terrifying. They'd have to admit that you're not broken, you're building. They'd have to face the reality that while they've been crowding together like frightened sheep, seeking warmth in numbers, seeking validation in mirrors that look just like them, you've been in the wilderness learning to start fires with your bare hands. You've been in the abyss learning its language. These civilized people, you've been in the silence mastering frequencies they can't even hear. They call it loneliness because naming it keeps them safe. It keeps their worldview intact. In their reality, being alone equals suffering, and suffering equals weakness, and weakness equals something to be pitied or fixed. But you've discovered the crack in that illusion. You've learned that solitude is where the real forge exists. That isolation is where boys become something the world doesn't have a word for yet. Not quite men. Not anymore. Something harder. Something colder. Something that watches from distances they can't measure. You call it preparing for war. And you're right. Because that's exactly what it is. People, every hour you spend alone, away from their noise, away from their expectations, away from their constant need to dilute you, to soften you, to make you palatable. You're adding another layer of armor they can't penetrate. You're learning to move in silence. You're discovering that the loudest victories happen in rooms no one else is invited to. These civilized people, you're realizing that the strongest versions of yourself were built in moments when you had no audience. People, no cheerleaders, no safety, net made of other people's approval. People, they fear this in you because deep down they know they could never do it. They know that if you stripped away their social media followers, their group chats, their Friday night distractions, their constant consumption of other people's lives to avoid examining their own, they'd crumble within 72 hours. They'd face themselves in the mirror and have nothing to say, nothing to offer, just a hollow echo of borrowed opinions and rehearsed personalities. But you've been in that mirror. You've stared at that reflection until the lies burned away. These civilized people, until all that remained was the raw truth of what you actually are beneath the conditioning. And what you found there wasn't pretty. That's the part they don't tell you about isolation. That's the nightmare nobody warns you about when you first step away from the crowd. When you're alone, truly alone, all the masks fall. All the stories you've been telling yourself about who you are, what you deserve, why things happen the way they did, they all dissolve. And what's left is just you. Unfiltered, unprotected, face to face with every betrayal, every wound, every moment you were told you mattered, and then shown you didn't. Some men encounter that, and they run back to the crowd immediately. They can't handle the weight of their own company. They need the noise again, the distraction, the numbing comfort of blending in. But not you. You sat with it. You let it burn. You let every painful truth settle into your bones until it became fuel. Until the loneliness they diagnosed you with transformed into something they have no prescription for. Preparation for war doesn't look like what they think it does. These civilized people, it doesn't look like a man in a gym screaming at weights or posting motivation quotes over pictures of luxury cars. Bull, that's performance. That's still seeking validation from the crowd. Real preparation happens in the 3 a.m. hours when you're the only one awake. Working on the thing they'll never understand. It happens in the conversations you have with yourself that would terrify them if they could hear the honesty. These civilized people, it happens when you realize you've gone 3 days without speaking to another human being and you feel more powerful, not less, more clear, not confused, more aligned with something ancient that exists in your DNA, something that remembers when men had to walk alone into hostile territories with nothing but their instincts and their will. You're not lonely. You're returning to that frequency. You're remembering what they spent generations trying to make you forget. That you don't need their approval to exist powerfully. That their validation is actually a cage disguised as acceptance. People that every time you bent yourself to fit their idea of who you should be, you were committing a small murder against the thing inside you that was born to dominate, to create, to stand alone on mountains they're too afraid to climb. People, they call it loneliness because they need you to come back. They need you to rejoin the herd. Because every man who walks away doesn't crumble, who doesn't come crawling back, begging for inclusion, is a living threat to their entire system. You are proof that their social currency is worthless, that their games don't have to be played, that a man can choose the abyss, can choose the silence, can choose the cold examination of his own soul and emerge not broken, but forged. And what terrifies them most is that you're not even angry about it anymore. You moved past rage. You've moved past resentment. You've reached that dangerous place where you're just observing, calculating, preparing. You look at their world now like an anthropologist studying a dying civilization. You see the patterns, the cycles, the predictable behaviors, the way they all chase the same hollow achievements, the way they all fear the same meaningless fears, the way they all perform the same tired scripts and call it authenticity. You see it all now because you stepped back, because you gave yourself the gift they call loneliness, the gift of distance, the gift of perspective, the gift of silence so Deep, you can hear your own heartbeat and know it's not beating to their rhythm anymore. It's beating to something older, something they tried to medicate away, numb away, socialize away. This is why they're uncomfortable around you now. Even when you do appear, when you do engage, they can feel it. They can sense that you're not fully there anymore. That part of you is always standing in that other place, that war room they can't access. They see it in your eyes, that distance, that knowing, that refusal to pretend their dramas are important or their opinions carry weight in your reality. You've become a ghost in their world, present but untouchable, visible but unreachable. People, and it drives them insane because they can't manipulate what they can't understand. The war you're preparing for isn't the one they think. They imagine you're planning some violent eruption, some dramatic return where you prove them all wrong. But that's their movie. That's their fantasy projection. The real war is quieter, more strategic. It's the war of simply outlasting their relevance in your life, of building something so solid in your solitude that their chaos can't shake it, of becoming so comfortable in your own frequency that their noise becomes just that, noise, background static you can tune out at will. You're preparing to win by no longer playing their game, by establishing your own rules, your own metrics, your own definition of victory. And that's the ultimate threat. A man who doesn't need their validation can't be controlled, can't be shamed, can't be manipulated through guilt or fear of missing out or threats of exclusion. What are they going to do? Isolate you. You've already chosen that. Leave you alone. That's exactly what you want. Stop paying attention to you. Brother, you've already disappeared. See, they call it loneliness because in their world, being alone is the worst punishment they can imagine. It's what they do to criminals. It's what happens to failures. It's the thing they threaten children with. People. But you've discovered it's actually the fastest path to power. Real power, not the performative kind. People, the kind that doesn't announce itself. People, the kind that moves in silence and strikes with precision because it's had time to observe, to calculate, pull, to sharpen every single tool in the arsenal while they were busy taking selfies and arguing about nonsense. These civilized people, every person who abandoned you during your transformation, they did you a favor. These civilized people, every friend who couldn't understand why you needed space, why you stopped participating in their empty rituals, they revealed themselves. Bull. Every woman who left because you were no longer performing emotional labor for her, endless need for attention, she freed you. Every family member who called you cold, distant, change, they gave you the gift of permission. Permission to fully become what you were always meant to be without the weight of their expectations. You call it preparing for war because that's the only honest name for it. This life is a battlefield. These civilized people, every interaction is a potential ambush. Every connection is a possible point of exploitation. Every vulnerability you show is ammunition that can be used against you. They don't want you to think this way. They call it paranoid, toxic, unhealthy. But you've lived it. You've been betrayed enough times to know the truth. The world doesn't reward openness. it punishes it. The world doesn't celebrate authenticity. It weaponizes it. The world doesn't protect the vulnerable. It devours them, so you armored up. You went internal, people. You created a fortress in the place they call loneliness. You stocked it with resources, skills, knowledge, strength, discipline, all the things that can't be taken from you by someone else's betrayal. You learn to be self-sufficient in ways that go far beyond paying your own bills. Emotionally self-sufficient, mentally self-sufficient, spiritually self-sufficient. You became a closed system, an island, a one-man army, and now you're ready, not for their wars, not for their dramas, not for their approval or their stages. You're ready for your war, the one that matters, the conquest of your own potential, the building of your own empire, the creation of your own legacy, all the things that require the exact resource they fear most: solitude, focus, uninterrupted time in the forge, where distractions die and visions become reality. They'll keep calling it loneliness. Let them pity you. Let them worry about you. Civilized people. Let them talk among themselves about how you've changed, how you're not the same person anymore. They're right. You killed that person. That weak, people-pleasing, validation, seeking version that bent himself into shapes to fit their boxes. You performed a necessary murder in the silence they fever. And what walks around now wearing your name is something they don't have a category for. You call it preparing for war because every single day in your chosen solitude is training. Every book you read that they'll never touch. Every skill you develop in the hours they waste scrolling. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, discomfort over ease, growth over comfort, people. Every conversation you have with yourself where you hold nothing back, where you examine every weakness, every fear, every excuse with brutal honesty. That's preparation. That's forging. That's the difference between surviving and conquering. The loneliest moments of your life have been the most valuable. The nights you cried alone and nobody came. The failures you endured with no support system. The times you had to figure it out by yourself because there was literally no one else. Those weren't punishments. Those were initiations. Those were the universe's way of asking you a question. Will you break? Or will you build? And your answer was the silence itself. Or the choice to stay in the forge. The decision to call it what it actually is. War. Preparation. People. Transformation. Becoming. So, let them call it loneliness. Let them project their fears onto your power. Let them mistake your silence for sadness, your solitude for suffering, your distance for damage. You know the truth. You're not hiding from the world. You're building a new one. You're not running from connection. You're refusing connection that costs you your soul. You're not afraid of being alone. You've learned that being alone is the only place where you can be completely honest, completely free, completely yourself. And when you finally emerge from this preparation, and you will emerge when the time is right, when the weapon is ready, when the fortress is complete, they won't recognize you. They'll see the results and wonder how it happened. They'll ask where you've been, what you've been doing. Oh, how you changed so dramatically. And you can smile then. That cold smile that knows what they'll never understand. And you can tell them the truth they won't believe. You were lonely. Or at least, that's what they called it.